Good afternoon. Please join us. Anyone who's back there might very well like to move forward so that we don't we get a little bit more intimate. I hope you had a little break at lunch. We're entering into the second half of this day, and it's the first session will be about architecture. That is, about a city. And we've talked a lot about environmental questions. We talked about identity and negative identity in the communities we come from. We've talked about local creatives and their capacity to work in a community. But in reality, a town, whether it's Skegness or Grimsby or Helsingør or Brindisi, a town is made up of buildings and space and roads and ways of moving between these places. It's a map. And the architecture is a kind of map. It's also historical. And I remember, just before we start, an experience that we had during our travel with Corners, the second project that we did later, in Taranto, in the town of Taranto in southern Italy. Taranto was a city that probably was one of the most beautiful places in the world, with both an inner sea and an outer sea, and a clam business or clam production that was really unique, blue mussels. And about 40 years ago, maybe a little longer, they built a steel factory and turned all of the farmers and their families into industrial workers. And of course, the money was much better and it seemed to be so secure. Well, as we all know, the steel industry moved. This place has just become a problem. From 90,000 workers to now 2,000 or 4,000 workers. It's still the central economic base of the town. But nobody can go back to being farmers because the environment is so destroyed by the pollution from the steel factory. And this is an unsolvable problem where when we met people there, they told us, well, they've given us a very good choice. We can either die of cancer, or our children can die of cancer, or we can die of starvation, meaning we don't have jobs, and we have to move. So what I really wanted to say about Taranto was Taranto was built as a protection, as all small cities in the south, with walls around it, on a little island that was kind of halfway in between the sea and the mainland. And this town, for hundreds of years, it was not permitted to build any structures or anything outside of the walls of the city, because that would encourage invaders to come and make sieges and allow them to survive while they waited for the town inside to become so starving that they had to give up. So basically, the stones inside the building that they built the houses with, when they wanted to build a new house, they had to take down something and build it with the same stones again. And we were given a visit there, and they took us to a place and they showed us, we could see 3,000 years of architectural history by watching. You could see the ground floor, the bottom, and then that was just left and the stones were taken away, and it was built the second level and the second level. And this idea that a city or town is made up of a whole series of transformations that go on. So nowadays, for too long, especially during, let's say, 60s, 70s, in this optimism of economic development, the idea was to come in and kind of tear down everything and then build these new buildings, which didn't have the same length of life because they were built quickly and they were built inexpensively, and they were not intended to be for 500 years. And the feeling was that suddenly history was moving too quickly, that we were not able to build on what we had and change it slowly, piece by piece, generation by generation, but that suddenly things were wiped away and completely new, foreign additions. Now, I don't have any problem with eclecticism. I think it's lovely sometimes to see an old house and a brand new house right next to each other. But we have to deal with what was the original intention of the... Oh, Jacek, there you are. I didn't know he was there. I was trying to waste time while you found him. Okay. So I'll let Jacek explain it. Jacek Dominiczak is an architect, an architect philosopher, a teacher, an artist in his own right, who followed us for a great part of the SEAS project from already in the beginning of 2003-04 and throughout all the way through Skegness. And in most of the places we came to, his job was to work with local architecture students or city planners and to what he called fast urban research. Now, it wasn't fast only because we didn't have a lot of time. It was fast also because a quick view opened up new ways of seeing. So I'm going to let him describe it. And but first, Jacek, could you just present yourself before we turn on your presentation? Jacek Dominiczak, a great pleasure. Thank you. Can we hear?
Yes.
He's muted.
You're muted.
He's not. He's not muted.
We can't hear you.
Hang on.
Is it you?
Probably.
Sorry.
Is it?
Where is the camera? I can't see where he sees me.
No, he's on the computer.
Okay.
Try again. No, he's not on mute at all.
He's on mute?
No, he's not.
Oh, it worked perfectly this morning.
Okay.
The computer.
I was going to say it might be him that's speaking.
Yeah. Can you try it on your computer, Jacek?
Jacek, can you unmute?
On your keyboard. Yes.
This afternoon is going to be a bit slow, I think.
No,
He's going to write.
Are his headphones interrupting?
Is it your headphones, maybe? They were fine this morning. No, I still can't hear you. It worked literally perfect this morning.
Is the screen presenting from this laptop here? 'Cause
Yeah.
The sound is down in the corner.
Oh.
So your laptop might be muted itself.
No, I'll put that up again.
That's on now.
Try it again.
Jacek,
Ask him if he can take off his
can you take your
headphones.
earphones out and try it without your earphones?
Pull out the earphones.
I don't think it's outside, I think it's...
Is he hearing us?
I know. The joys of technology. Oh, now my emails aren't coming up. Maybe. It worked perfect this morning, didn't it? You did.
Can you,
Yeah, never mind.
Jacek, unplug your earphones
And then pull it out of the computer.
and pull them out of the computer?
Try that. No, it's not working. Okay. I don't think it's outside. Right, well, should we get his presentation up and then we can try it then?
Then we do what?
Get his presentation up
Okay.
now and then.
All right, Jacek, we will show your presentation and then we'll try to get this solved when it's over. Okay? Jacek has prepared a 30-minute presentation of his work with fast urban research, specifically focusing on Skegness here, and then we're going to be asking Damien to have a response to that, but also tell us something about their work. So that's the next part. Go ahead, turn on the presentation. Thank you. How's the sound here now?
That's what we're just about to find out, I think.
Something's come unplugged.
Yeah, something else.
Didn't even help to have the presentation on this video.
So
Here we are.
here I am. Good morning or good afternoon, Skegness. Strange to be with you in such a different form, but let's hope that technology will allow us to truly communicate. Thank you very much, Chris George and Adam Jeans and Hannah Tomlinson for inviting me. I remember at the very end of my presentation in Skegness 16 years ago, I said, if you will need me one day, just call me back, I will come. So here I am, however, as I said, in a slightly different form. Today I will be speaking in 5 points. First, I will say a few words about City of Skegness and my memory of it. Then I will talk about SEAS project and my participation in that very project, specifically about fast urban research. Then I will focus on Skegness again, and I will refer the results, quick look at the results of Skegness fast urban research made 16 years ago. At the very end, I will ask for future advancement, since, as I understand, we are here just because of this. Skegness. I remember this city as a place of tremendous slowness potential. The place to come, to relax, to enjoy the world, and enjoy all the post-human aura of the seashore. However, I remember this place also as a place of care, where surprisingly many people in this hard, but as we can see, good time, they moved to Skegness. I remember all those, as I call them, dinosaurs, which were designed for young people, for young families with kids. And this 16 years ago, those machines were almost empty, however, were still working regularly on time. I remember this strange moment of looking for the pier, and then I realized that this pier somehow evolved in a slightly different type of institution. Instead of poetry, the seashore poetry, this place became the place of more games, more fun, a lot of change. Especially today, after 16 years, seeing those images I took in this casino, I'm not sure about this concept of fun, which somehow rises in the world. SEAS was a phenomenal project. I think that none of us artists or architects had the opportunity to participate in such an enormous project. It took a lot of effort for many people to organize it. Of course, for me, the key figure was always Chris. And I have to thank you, Chris, for such a really spectacular experience of visiting so many places, so many cities, actually with the same focus, with the same project in mind. Thank you, Adam, for specifically for being there and having a lot of very important conversations. Somehow, good perspective on arts and architecture connection with spaces. I just want to recall Dragan Klajic. He ran the SEAScape conference in 2009. Very important conversations and exchanges. Stay well in a way, Dragan. The whole meeting in Skegness was absolutely fantastic. There were a lot of artists, a lot of very carefully prepared performances, events. I remember particularly those two events, the suitcases, the Phantomat, and when I was searching for my photographs, this was the first time when I realized that in this post-human world there are other creatures which actually look at us.
No to jest naprawdę, to jest kurczę, coś niesamowitego, no.
We will do a good job.
Pracowałem 2 dni na takim
of
gówno.
the world and the sense of the planet. My participation in SEAS project was mostly with the research project called Fast Urban Research. As you can see here, we made together with Monika Zawadzka, at that time we used to work together. We made research on Klaipeda, Gdansk, Stockholm, Rijeka, Konstanta, Odessa, Varna, Istanbul, Gothenburg, Skegness. I want to show you two of them, Stockholm and Konstanta, before I will show the results of our work on Skegness. Stockholm was directly, I moved to Stockholm, I traveled to Stockholm directly from my city of Gdansk. And you can see here the old city with the main St. Mary's Church in the center, and the circle of old medieval fortifications. Preparing myself to visit Stockholm, I made this drawing. This is the same scale of the central island of Stockholm, with central buildings, governmental buildings in the very center. It is tremendous to realize, making this kind of comparative perspective for European cities, how close we are each other, how similar are we in the way how we create spaces. This is the scheme of Stockholm, and you see these tiny dotted lines which show main streets. One of the key elements of fast urban research is to understand that our perception of a place, especially when it must be done fast, is through the reference to the main street. I really believe that the main street is this point of reference for everyone who visits the new place. So there is a specific way and methodology I invented to analyze how this main street proceed, how the urban walls of buildings which are on the both sides of the street, how they actually vibrate, how the street in the modern part of the city is wide, you can see the blue lines, or how it is narrow in the oldest parts of the town, you see the red lines. But then when we look at the Stockholm, I want to show you a very particular fragment of the north of the town, of the city. This is this yellow square, and if we look at it from the short distance, then look what happened here. When you see around the Fontainebleau drawing, you can see that the grids of streets are very regular, based on rectangular systems. But those two streets which I drew are completely different, very complex, very unusual. Those are the streets which are the scenes of different grids of the town. The complexity of those two streets is critically important when we agree with what is one of the main theses of my research work, that deformation, complexity of deformation, is the medium of identity. From that point of view, fast urban research is able to discover, to name all those streets and places in the city which are key for local identity. The second example from 2006 is the research made on Constanta. You can see the heart of the city and the five main monuments red, and research of the systems, spatial systems, identify certain different zones of particular local identity within the larger identity of entire Constanta. So you can see those are fragments which are particularly different within the very system. And then, what was amazingly important, you can see in the very center, the central red monument is surrounded by the main plaza of the town, and then geometrical studies of the position of that plaza regarding the other monuments is quite geometrically spectacular, because you can see the rings which expose the similar distances from the pair of monuments in the town. Secret code, someone can say, or the code to maintain particular identity of this place, particular hidden system which makes Constanta different from all other cities. And then the field of this pure geometry, which shows that in a way urban design, in this greatest time of European urban aesthetics, is actually quite contemporary and quite abstract. But one can study the plans of the city as a pretty amazing systems. Let's focus now on fast urban research we made specifically for Skegness. I do like and remember my visit in the train station in Skegness. It was almost abandoned at that time, and I remember walking on those empty platforms, looking in the highly deformed train tracks. It was extremely full of adventure, this kind of aura of missing what is there at the very end was so powerful. I think that that's very poetry of European train tracks, and I'm very happy to read that the train station is somehow restored. But I made a few new drawings to make it more contemporary and clear on the map, Google map. So when we were studying the town, this idea of building a train station was really critical to understand. Train station was built in 1873 as a really beautiful, pure building. And a lot of this atmosphere remains, Skegness, 16 years ago. Even the main hall of the station somehow one could sense the aura of abandonment, but at the same time it was this nice, great feeling that people want to use it in a proper way, in an advanced way, in a cultural way. I remember people I met there who were still respecting this amazing sculpture which was inside the building, but at the same time they treat the person, the sculptured person, as one of the guests. And the sculpture, what was very important to see, was not in any way abused by people. So, but this was the beginning, to recognize the size and the position, very diagonal position of the train station within the town. But at the same time, one could recognize very quickly that sparked biological response. It is on the very axis of that train track, the train station, the train track, where St. Matthew Church was built 7 years later. It was quite nicely to see that people were aware about this, how St. Matthew is actually the next step in creating the identity of the town. In this old newspaper text, there is a very nice sentence: the Church of St. Matthew was therefore erected in the center of the new town, at the intersection of two main avenues. This is the way how we used to think about relationship between architecture and urbanism. The oldest photograph of the church I found in the internet, and this is my photograph from 2009. The church already has a small tower, and this is the axis of the avenue. So, as it was written in the text, the new town was raised around this very point of intersection of two avenues. So, not surprisingly, the direction towards the sea was this really important one. It was great to see how populated the city was, how many people used to live in that place, how many kitchens were preparing breakfasts and lunches and dinners in this very, very contemporary town of that time. In the same time, really great urbanism. You can see this type of urbanism which we now dream about in this turbo-capitalism time. You can see the size of the sidewalk, the space, the trees. This is exactly what we miss in contemporary cities. So one could say that maybe this is the prototype of a contemporary city. We can think about Skegness in this way, because it started from technology, from the train station. Then it's connected with the traditional culture, which is the church, and then contemporary town for a new community, new society, and then celebration of the seashore. This amazing moment where the avenue was actually in a very poetical manner. Whenever I would see the pier, I remember pier in Sopot in Poland, which is so enormously extended into the water of the sea. Such a beautiful gesture which tells us a lot about our grandparents, that they enjoy life in a different way. They celebrate the space, the climate, the atmosphere, the sound, the smell. This is what we all have in the seashore towns. Just we have to raise our heads above the screens of iPhones. Put the iPhones in the pockets, look around, breathe, and realize that we own really fantastic, phenomenal, potentially great spaces. The entrance to the pier was actually advancing from small wooden structure. It was built and raised as almost a monument. But then, exactly, the capitalism came, and to be positive, I would say like this: the way how Skegness will remodel the casino with respect to the memory of the former pier, it will be the advancement not only to our culture of living on the seashore, but who knows, maybe also the advancement of what you can see on the left side of the building, of the way how we want to amaze people and how we want to celebrate free time. Inside the casino, there was this beautiful photograph of the old entrance to the pier. I'm glad and happy already for all the years that the city, even the casino, remember this great coastal culture. So this is quick drawing of the key elements, and now quickly drawings of the Skegness, which were made as a result of the Fusselman research in 2009. So you can see the whole system of lines and this contemporary quilt of the city. I'm speaking about quilt because my impression is that this is a really great comparison. This culture of making quilts is a celebration of of differences, of uniqueness of every piece of fabric, but at the same time there is this sowing urbanism which shows that those different identities can be put together and to create a mesh of a new common identity for this particular kilt. I'm talking about kilts specifically because of Skegness, because within St. Matthew Church, in the time of SEAS 16 years ago, was actually an exhibition of kilts. St. Matthew was really somehow nicely present in the SEAS Festival. You can see our flag is flying today to celebrate the SEAS Festival. It was really, I had this feeling that this very institution understood the position in the very center of a new town, and that this is the obligation to respond, to be dialogic towards all the events, cultural events, which took place in the city. Skegness, faster than research, was combined with workshop, which was actually quite nice and very intense. There were a lot of people and a lot of research were done. I will show you just few of them. Scarborough Avenue was analyzed by one of the group of students, and they were studying vibration of urban walls on both sides of the street, and they looked for proportions of that street. All those are prototypes for local identity continuations. They were studying different, less important streets in the town. They were studying the specificity of street intersections, how they behave, how they create urban interiors and the atmosphere of place. It was a great time, great workshop. First we were very serious. At the end we were able to laugh together and enjoy the common work. It was really great. And here is the most important. How about future? How about thinking about the potential of this space? So, yes, thank you, Chris, thank you, Adam, Hannah, for putting all of us together to drink tea, to drink coffee, and to talk about the future. It is really necessary, I think, to talk about the future, because we have to find the way to bring people to positive thinking, because we are now living much more surrounded by fears than by the futuristic concepts. When I see the potential of seashores, of all the beaches, all those fantastic introverted people who spend hours walking along the edge of water, I just have this tremendous feeling that in response to this beautiful, phenomenal environment, first of all, we have to be fundamentally serious. It does not mean that we cannot experience joy and fun and all those things. But the stress here should be on this fundamentality of seriousness. This fundamental seriousness today very often begins with the response to the planet, to the idea of protecting their spaces. But then I think that we also have to remember that architecture should be also fundamentally, in that very way, fundamentally serious in this type of spaces. I do like this strange, this is a slide from Skegness from 2009. I really think that this type of sticker should be really popular between architects. No dumping of rubbish. Let's make these things truly smart, truly contemporary, truly focused on the future not only of the world, but also generations which will hopefully enjoy those spaces back again. No more cheap airlines, no more Airbnb. Let's go back to our seashores. Just enjoy the environment and the fun of being together. This was a great time to take part in Black North SEAS Contemporary Art Festival. But this unpacked piece of candy should remind us that what is really sweet is still ahead of us. But there is a change. Post-human world is also looking at us. We have to be sure that they will not think that we have no idea what to do. I hope that all the time, all the conversation we'll have together in Skegness will move us forward. I wish you great time and really good debates. Thank you.
Do we have contact with Jacek?
Well, that's what we're going to try and do, I think,
Okay.
really, and see if we've got him there. He currently can't hear us, that's the only other issue.
You can't hear us, no.
No.
I can hear you now.
Ah, we can't see you though, Jacek. There he is. There he
Do
is.
you want to give me the sound?
Okay,
Hello, Jacek.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we hear you and we see you. You want to put it on full screen?
You're on full screen.
Should be one of those two in the corner there, I think.
Oh, no, maybe it's not.
No, I think it's the first one. Maximize meeting window, that's right. No, the last one. The last one.
Try to open.
There it is.
There we go.
Hello, Jacek. I know that you can't really see us because unless you want to turn
He can see you.
that direction.
No,
Yes,
he
he sees my back.
Oh, there.
Yeah, but if you turn,
Yes,
you
I
can see
can-
who he's talking to as well. Could I have one?
I can see you from unusual direction.
Could I have something?
Yeah.
Hello? Hello? There we are. Okay. Jacek, stay with us now and listen to the response that we're getting from Damien here, because I think it would be good if we got both of your perspectives on together with us here, and then we'll talk a little bit before. So let's see what Damien has to say. Damien is an architect from Old School Architects. I think he can present himself. We've asked Damien to respond, but of course he also has his own experiences and his own work here. So please, welcome. Damien.
Thank you very much. Okay. So this will be an old kind of response, in as much as I prepared it a week ago and I hadn't seen his presentation. What I have enjoyed is, the last couple of hours and yesterday has made a complete mess of my notes because I scribbled notes from everyone else's. So if I go off on the tangent, it's your fault. Yeah.
Can you give him just a little bit more sound? Julia? Thank you.
Is better? Yes? No? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but the sound is really cut into pieces.
Cut into pieces. Ooh. There. That might be better, I can see my slides. Should we try my slides?
My impression is that you have too many applications open in the computer.
We're trying too hard. We can move quickly past that one. So the introduction and as it was put to me was that we're talking about the sense of place. And as an architect, and I am mindful, it came up earlier, I'm also a lecturer, so as much as we use these grand terms and everything else, the reality is that when we say things like genius loci, it's the spirit of the place. And it's the unique character, atmosphere and history of a location, maybe all of it, but it should influence the design of a building or space to blend harmoniously with its surroundings. And that to me as an architect, and like Lars's experience, is first and foremost the architect responding. And also by creating a sense of place. There's context. The contextual understanding is what we've just had with the fast urban research, in whatever method it's done. Harmonious integration, promoting designs that seamlessly integrate local materials and technologies, but ultimately creating a sense of place, respecting and celebrating the unique qualities of a location. And I think Skegness is quite clearly one of those locations. Let's point it at you, Dana. That should be awkward. The top, okay. So as I put these things, I was trying to pull something together and wondering why I'd been asked to do this. I started to realise that, and you'll see, this is obviously my maps are in reference to the previous slides. That's me responding. So in the previous life, I lived in Hamburg, and much like yourselves, going through and making this, I realised this was over 20 years ago. And as a young architect with a couple of friends, there was the Hamburg Architecture Summer was an event that was very stiff, very formal, very much in Hamburg, by Hamburg, and just not known by most people, not very interesting. So we took it upon ourselves, funded it and built it ourselves. We made 7 pieces of furniture. They kind of looked like 7s. And we placed these items for a couple of weeks in parts of Hamburg. We effectively had a party location for 2 weeks that moved around Hamburg. We probably didn't realise it at the time, but we were really using our knowledge of place and space. Firstly, can we get away with doing it there? Will people notice? Can we play loud music? So some locations were on the Elbe, on the river. Others were in the centre of town. As one does, I think at that age, we knew artists, Catherine Bettker, did with overhead projectors, if people still know what they are, just the most amazing light shows and visuals by using materials, ball bearings, polystyrene. So we used our 7 pieces of furniture as a backdrop, but this again was right in the centre of Hamburg. But it was our reading of place. As I say, first and foremost, where can we put these 7 elements and make some noise? But also, as young architects in the city, there was a lot of opportunity. And I think we used that and continue to use that knowledge later on. So this is the Opera House now in Hamburg. That's been Herzogenaurach. I haven't shown images of it, but it's within the Hafen city, which again was a derelict space. The port was unused to the greater part in that area, and things were shifting as they have done locally and as we've been talking about. But it became, and this is honestly one of the more carefully chosen shots showing public use and the green spaces,
But as with a lot of what we call gentrification, and I was involved in it, suddenly we were making barriers. These unused ports and spaces were becoming waterside apartments and expensive places. So, for no other reason than I was involved in them, we were building, through competitions, apartment buildings with, I think 30 apartments or more that were luxury living. This is a major city, Hamburg, with quite a lot of money, and so we had the opportunity to, with developers, really provide high-end apartments with a bit of green space. So much like a lot of European cities, there is the opportunity to wander around, to spend time there in green space with trees on the waterside, but it's still that blur. I now do, with our office in NAS, we're in adaptive reuse. We're converting barns, old buildings, not a lot of new buildings, not really what we do, but that adaptation, be it old stables into new dwellings, that's our day-to-day. That's what I enjoy doing as an architect. But just as much, and I think I can sort of align a bit with artists and other people chatting in the last couple of days, that sometimes what really interests you or what you want to get stuck into, and you think is really important, isn't necessarily going to pay the bills. But there was an opportunity, one second. In lockdown, all that while ago, I had a conversation with some colleagues and as to how to best use our time. And we had a look at Laz town centre as a study. Now, admittedly not a coastal report, but I'll get onto this. I'm just trying to demonstrate place audits. The analysis of place, so whether it's fast urban research or in Louth done by us quietly on desktops, analysing hierarchy of streets and spaces, being seduced sort of sketches of, transport, heritage analysis, quality and age of the buildings, streetscape in public realm, and general areas of a space is still important. And then actions, connecting the community, communicate the story, create a beating heart, enliven the streetscape, enrich the offering. There was lots of spreadsheets. There were also a lot of graphics and cartoons, such as that people can enjoy or buy into. So this tagline, create a beating heart, was about rejuvenating the market and doing public realm activities and just re-looking at it. One of the beauties, I'm guessing, with the fast urban research is that when you go somewhere that you're not from or you're not connected with, your immediate reactions are okay, they're not loaded. So you just go, well, this could be nice, or this is nice, or I find the quality in one part or in another. So I was very much the local Louth architect, but working with people that were from London or other key cities. There was some graphic ideas for existing buildings. Again, part of this is difficult because they're head uses. And being that guy or that group that says, you see that building, that would be amazing if. And for I have to be a bit careful, but people that know the buildings say, well, no, that's a shop. And they've got a 10-year lease on that. And you can't tell them that. But in COVID, it gave us a bit of a license. But only a bit, as you'll see. Enliven the streetscape, actions. Again, this is a group of people that have been sort of studied, investigated, not just me, others. Ways we can enliven the streetscape. What can we do to slow spaces down, give more greenery, give more opportunity to dwell? If you engage with the community, with the plan, with the development, with the implementation, as you're about to see, prioritising community needs participation to ensure it's relevant, it's responsible, and it's sustainable. So we had these beautiful graphics. We submitted the report just after COVID. It was all very well received. And I'm getting nervous about this. I didn't hear anything for a long while, and then all of a sudden, loud parklets appeared. So that was done as a sort of pro bono study based on European connections and what we'd seen and the possibilities. A bit of a row broke out with what actually got implemented and built, which I had no connection with. But it is really important how things are implemented, how the community are engaged with something and work with it so that they can fight for it, agree to pay for it, but also just enjoy it. So one of the pieces that we did here looked at revamping streetscape and heritage restoration, period details and features, strategies, just what would we like it to be in an amount of time. And I'm glad to say that, not exactly for this, but there are now places, so coming back to what's happening locally, in Mablethorpe, Heritage Lincolnshire are delivering town centre grants, and so they're able now, with these concept sketches, to update and develop these mixed retail high streets that were a bit mishmash and lots of things going on. There's now grants available, so for the owners of the stores, without going into the percentages, they put money down and the grants will improve, will be made to improve that shop front and the identity of the space, allowing people to buy into these things. It's almost like I saw the last slideshow with the maps. But again, this is coming back to Skegness. I can now walk over here. So whilst the station was just being discussed, the high street comes along here, and this is one of the major departments. Let's skip one. Well, I'll come back to it. So the idea really is that through this money and the opportunity, and I say this, I'm more than aware that we've got some fantastic new swimming pools and we've got major architecture things happening, but I'm talking literally about the community, the culture within the community, the before and after. A number of things has happened here. It's smartened up. It's got a stronger look to it, but also we've been able, with Score Hawkins, we've been able to add a door that means that there's access to the first floor that's now an apartment. So someone's living upstairs and they weren't able to do so before. So the streetscape suddenly comes alive because lights are on in the evening and the pizza looks a bit smarter. The department store on the corner is one of the best known shops in Skegness, and it's on a key gateway and key driveway. But before and after is clearly quite distinct. And it just, what it's done in doing is that not just that is it making this a better offering visually, but also for the store, the next door neighbours are looking at their store and saying, oh, I've got a bit shabby now. Tell me again about that grant, or even just those small details that they'll do just to make it a bit, you'd rather blend in with the one on the right than the one on the left. There's a lot of text. Hull Fruit Market is another good example. Hull being Port City. the historic market, the waterside location, and now the reworking, essentially, as part of the city culture, that has enabled the adaptive reuse or redevelopment of existing buildings, but with a view to culture, with a view to having an area that's now really quite lively at all times of night and day, where these buildings are repurposed to be shops, artist studios, galleries, offices, gig venues, as per that slide, but just reimagining and re-enlivening the space. And that's now the rear of the other side, which is a music and presentation venue. And this is a bit, refers back to this idea of the plans that we were just looking at in the previous presentation. This is Grimsby. I still don't know very much about Grimsby. I'm trying to learn. It's not very far away from me. But Freeman Street was one of the key arteries, because the dock, you can see the dock offices here, the dock's down here, or reversed there. I do apologise, Freeman Street runs down here. And the conversation is that Freeman Street used to be where, as we said earlier, people came off the boats with all their wages or with all their goods and had that bustle and activity. And now that that exchange isn't happening anymore, what can Freeman Street become? And also in its relation to the wider Grimsby region. Now, in part, Hodgson Assets just on the YMCA building there, and that's, I'm going to have to go to the phone because they said it much more eloquently than I could. For those that don't know, the YMCA's role is to empower individuals and communities to build a just, sustainable, equitable and inclusive world where every person can thrive in body, mind and spirit. So, what more could you ask for on Freeman Street is redevelopment of the zone. And one last thing, again, through context, this is by influence together with the National Trust in terms of equitable, accessible spaces for everybody. Sanderlands Golf Course is going to become a wildlife reserve. It's about 62 acres, and it will allow people to firstly engage. There's a huge, we've talked about volunteers in the Royal Lake Bay. There's a lot of volunteers involved in the planting and the establishment. But it just means that it's a space that anybody can go to and get involved with. And it's not a big building, it's a National Trust space, accessible to all, that will allow diversity of wildlife, bird life and everything else, but also a space for the community. If there's any chance of that working or not. Seems to be. That's me, thank you very much.
Stay here with us, of course. Now the question is, what can Jacek see? Do we know? I mean, can we turn the camera so that it faces towards us here in some way? I don't know where Jacek is. Are you there, Jacek? Yes, there he is.
I can see you now in front of the screen. Can you hear me?
Okay, so if we look towards you here, you see us. Stay here. That's okay, huh? You can see both of us. All right, very good. Well, there are many questions that arise. First of all, Fast Urban Research, as you can see, is as much an artistic project as it is a purely architectural project. It's trying to see through the eyes of the architect a city, and I have to remind Jacek of a time when we were walking through Stockholm at one point, and it changed my whole way of seeing the city. We were walking down the streets, and I said, we were talking about the walls and thinking about how we're in public space and they're in private space, and he said, yes, but do the black and white negative thing on this, and you realize that actually you walking down the street are in an inner room, and the people inside there looking out the windows are from the outside looking in on us in our public space. And suddenly the whole idea of who's inside and who's outside changed for me completely. And walking through the streets of Napoli, for example, in Italy, it's just amazing when I use that way of seeing that Jacek gave me. First question. What is the largest? I'll ask Damien first, and then Jacek, if you can respond as well. What is the greatest challenge when you look at these coastal communities? A place like Skegness, for example, it's got an architecture which is built for a specific purpose, and then was developed for that purpose. It wasn't for the coal miners who were working in the mines. It was built as a resort, or developed very quickly as a workers' resort area. What is the biggest challenge in terms of transforming that? Well, how much do we have to take care of heritage, which is somehow temporary? Actually, it's not. We're not talking about castles like Kronberg or these houses, these churches in Napoli. We're talking about buildings that were built with a relatively temporary thing. What's the challenge? How much can we change and without destroying it? And what do we lose and what do we gain?
It's a big question. Unfortunately, so one answer is that to appease the locality, you end up keeping a facade, and then the facade and the relationship to the streetscape is retained, but then everything behind has to be upgraded and made better. So those original hotels wouldn't necessarily have had en-suites to meet current demand and current expectations. So any time you go into somewhere, the building stock might be fine, but our ideas of quality and aspiration have raised significantly. And that's why you get the modern hotels that are more like modules on the street now. But I think part of the funding and what's going on is I should say, it's quite subtle, because it's those little details. I think the larger planning, you're right, it's not going to be UNESCO. And it's just about addressing the right spaces. The one thing, we know Grimsby quite well because we're dealing with commercial entities behind all of, Grimsby is not just the frontage. There's some amazing houses over by the golf course. There's a golf course. There's a number of different things going on. So it's not just about this front row. I think it is more short term. An adaptation and the pier, for example. Clearly, if the pier was still here, we'd be battling to save it as an entity. But I think it's what we latch onto. Grimsby has the opportunity. We talked briefly about Grimsby earlier, but it's actually a hub now for, depending on the political situation, they're doing very well with the offshore wind farms and being a new engineering hub for that. So that it wasn't touched on earlier, but that development has happened with the new technologies. Suddenly they've got a way of getting the kit and the people out to the middle of the city. So it's not the fish, it's offshore wind farms. Now politically, the same people in Grimsby are saying, we don't want offshore wind farms, when it could be a big job creation.
Economic development.
Yes, but then that's where that battle is. But it's always tricky. I'm personally not a fan of keeping things to have the same frontage, but it's really difficult. People don't think in hundreds of years anymore with hotels. It's like 20, 30, 40, and that's the difficulty.
Jacek, speaking to you on this question, what is the limit between some kind of architectural nostalgia and actually creating functional with a long-term future of a new city, especially when it comes to coastal communities where the landscape, the seascape, is really the thing that needs to be protected. And the architecture, is there a conflict between, let's say, community nostalgia and functional recycling? You always used to talk about old spaces finding new reasons for being. I don't know.
Adaptive reuse.
Yeah, exactly. Adaptive cultural recycling, we could call it. But what's your, I mean, how much you as an architect, when you follow architectural problems, is nostalgia a problem as opposed to protecting cultural heritage?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, before whatever I would say, I would mention that nostalgia is nothing wrong. The progressiveness of architecture is very often devastating, actually, what we understand as slow progress of culture. Then you were asking, Chris, about the functional future of the land. I would say, yes, we are already for 100 years in the mindset which puts functionality for the first place. And what I think we realize that because of this, a lot of places in Europe, in the zone of our culture, is losing the atmosphere and the mood, the pleasure of living in. From this point of view, I really believe that what is important is how to go beyond functionalism. How to move forward after 100 years of exercising functionalism, how to move forward. From that point of view, I really believe, and I just wrote it in a fragment of my manifesto recently published, that what is really important, the most important, is that architecture should help people who live in particular mood and particular atmosphere. To find places of particular atmosphere or even broader climate, and then to be able to recall it, to somehow adjust to it with particular mood. We live to be happy, and we live to have pleasure from architecture. My impression is that when I think about coastal cities, and I'm saying this from my experience of what is going on coastal cities in Poland now, that it is devastating when all both developers and architects believe that the best thing of coastal city is to build hotels with rooms which are view to the city. And this is such a naive and such a wrong concept. We have to push back the cities and architecture back from the natural environment of a beach, of a seashore. Just let people to go to the city just as usual as they go, as people who want to rethink their life, rethink the moment when they are in. We have to remember that going to the beach is to go to the end of the world, to the place where Earth for us is ending. We have only horizon, but above the sea. From that point of view, this is the last moment for us to in a way, in a contemporary way, to meditate, not to be a part of civilization, but just to be on the edge of civilization when the land touches the sea. My impression is that this is very important and that we should abandon this concept of tourist places from, I don't know, Bulgaria or French coast or Spanish coast, where all greatest hotels are built, they towers on the edge of the sea, just to let the customers to see the sea from the window of the hotel room. I think that would be the most important thing. Actually, we have in Poland this nice rule already for some years, that in the past you could build a single family house, small house, or vacation house just on the edge of the lake. Now there is requirement that you can build private property at least 100 meters out of the edge of the lake. My impression is that this should also refer to the seashore, but it's not about 100 meters. It's about allowing people to go to the beach and be in the nature, not on the edge of civilization.
Interesting. Damien, a question to you, because with your experience as an architect, as a visionary architect in coastal communities, is there an alternative to maintaining the facade but giving it a modern function behind it, and therefore somehow maintaining a history which actually is no longer directly relevant, or tearing it all down and building, Maravella or I don't know what buildings for, as Jacek called it, functionalism? Is there a third alternative? Is there any other way to go in terms of maintaining, but at the same time, is there another architecture that we haven't yet created? I mean, that we can imagine.
I think it comes back to you're responding to people, and so a lot of people talk about respite and the communities, the people that want to go there, and until we can, the generations that we've been talking about, so people coming from the mining towns to the edge of the world to the beach, because it was so very different. And that's past, but there's still people alive that know, and that's why they've got Skegness in their heart, and they'll continue that tradition. I think it's also been a point with the theatre and the general public, whether you say, right, this is how it should be, which is really strongly from the theatre spaces, or, I don't know whether as an architect I could prescribe and say this is what you should do, and expect the people to come. I think there's always going to be that battle between the traditional and the old. There's some very good examples in Germany where they've taken the old prestige buildings, Heiligen Dam, and places like the core hotels. It's just very high end, and I think that's the difficulty, is that is money is a key factor. If you want something that, dare I say it, wow factor, or that point of difference, if you want to convert an old building, that's hugely expensive and loaded in so many ways. But I don't think the answer is what's currently happening on the frontage here. But it is bringing people in. So then the argument is, well, if people are coming, then it must be working. But I don't know whether there's an immediate architectural response. But I think that's what's been so interesting yesterday and today, that how other people are dealing with it. Do you just put mass market hotels on here because you know that people know they can go online, they can book that hotel and get a room that would be the same as it would be in Birmingham city centre? That's not aspirational, but it works. If we retreat or do something far more interesting, does that automatically mean that it's expensive? And you've got to meet the market, unfortunately.
Following up on that, if I can, Damien, because there are two places that I've seen in Skegness. People from Skegness here will certainly recognize it. One is the new Travelodge Hotel, built primarily, which basically blocks the view to the sea from the street, but is obviously efficient. It's got a lot of rooms, probably at a relatively cheap cost. The other is this huge, I don't know whether it was a cricket field or what was it, that the grass is now growing. It's a very large piece of green area, which is not turned into a park where people just walk their dogs, I guess, at the moment. But obviously there must be a thought about what to do with that. And obviously one thought is to sell it and let them build a second travel lodge or something like it, or something else. Where do we go with these kinds of changes? I mean, because of course we have the city political leadership, which wants to create an economic turnover. We've got businesses that want to build relatively cheaply and make more money, and they don't really care about this city meets sea movement. Just referring to those two places, do you see any specific problems or challenges or solutions?
You see, I was far more careful about brand names that I use than the person that's not from the area. I think it's difficult because politically they'll say, look, we've got these new hotels, and they're bringing all these people in, and that brings money in and fresh people into the places. The hotels that were seafront are looking at these boxes and thinking they're much more successful and they're booked out, but again, it's that online clickability and book a room. I think it's going to be a huge battle because I think that strip will just be developed. It's a bit like if you open one coffee shop, you can guarantee that two other brands will appear, largely because that first one's there.
Starbucks is there now.
Again, I didn't mention any names. But yeah, I think it's just where we are. But I think it would have been a much stronger move to say that strip will never be developed, or not in that way, certainly not with higher buildings, and then address the frontage that was already there. I don't know how you're going to address that, because I think it will have the knock-on effect that the others will be seen as being very popular and functional, and then the battle will be the other hotel, the original hotel buildings that are then older, and what they have to do to keep up.
Last question for you. Go ahead. Jacek, say.
Yes. My impression is that this is a great situation because we're talking with two architects. So we have privilege to be in power here in this conversation. But at the very same time, my impression is that that architecture is in decline, and my impression is that a lot of architects accept that the theory of architecture is generated by economics. Architects are not brave enough already to say that they are really educated in understanding spaces, and then the theory of architecture about space is more important culturally than the theory of space as economical advancement. I just recently on YouTube I saw a film which was, as I understood, a part of a series which was called Nostalgia. And this was a conversation with an fantastic old woman who was visiting a palazzo in Venice, which was the place of her childhood. And she was talking about this, that she remembers Venice in the time of her childhood when she was opening a window and listening to birds and the sound of water in the canals. And that today he couldn't live in Venice because the sound outside the window is just the machines, the motors, the engines of all the boats and different type of machines. And then we should really ask the question, if we think that she is right, remembering the quiet Venice, is it just nostalgia and move backward? Or should we realize that our technological world, which pollutes an entire environment with this economically rational development, that this is progress, Because my impression is that for Venice, the progress would be to abolish mechanical engines and just make a pressure on developers to invent boats which can move silently on the canals. I'm absolutely sure that in the sense of technology it is possible, but just nobody, even architects, are brave enough to say it is enough. It is enough to live in the technologically driven, economically driven environment when we are like rats who try to adjust our way of living to the pressure of technology. I really believe that it's time to say it's a real time of the world, difficult. Sometimes we have a feeling that we are moving towards the end of this world which we know already, both from ecological and political point of view. But I think that this is the moment when we should realize that the sense of living in a rational and peaceful world is to take the pleasure out of living. And from that point of view, I think the industrial culture, which is already at least 100 years ago, I just want to recall that Le Corbusier and the foundation of modernism, this industrial modernism, was exactly 100 years ago. Le Corbusier wrote his first book in 1925. From that point of view, it's really time for a change. When I hear that the European Union is thinking about progress under the name New European Bauhaus, it scares me really, really deeply, because Bauhaus was the leader of industrialization of the space we are living in. I think we have to push the industrialization out of our private life.
Thank you. Last question. We need a break here because we've all been sitting for a while. But a last question to you, Jacek, first, but Damien, you can also respond. You just made clear for me the connection between architects and artists, because artists are also confronted in this world today of trying to come up with the goods that we're being asked to come up with. That is, we have to demonstrate that we can bring large audiences. We have to demonstrate we can sell many tickets. We have to demonstrate that that it's spectacular enough and therefore also potentially superficial enough. That is that which is the most for the most people. And architects are confronted with the same thing. You're given a task to build a hotel, but you have an economic and numbers of square meters per person and everything else, and these regulations mean that you stop being creative and you start being functional, and that functionalism. So this connection between art, can you just say something, Jacek, because I know of your great pleasure that you've had in your meetings and your dialogues with artists. What do you see in terms of yourself as an architect working, let's say, with building projects on large scale, city and nationally funded, and artists trying to make a piece of work? Where does where does one lack the courage, and what does it take for us to have the courage to try to take it one step farther?
This is a very good question, Chris. My impression, well, in Gdansk we have really a lot of experiences with in a way, fighting for the space of the post-shipyard area in the city. The artists used to be the leaders, and they were pushed out by big business. And now it's the moment, under the kind of social pressure, that artists actually are coming back to the shipyard. It is quite amazing. I want to say one important thing. Many years ago, in the 90s, when I moved to the United States, where I lived for 7 years, I remember how surprised I was when buying a weekend issue of New York Times. I found the kind of weekend edition to the newspaper, which was called Art and Entertainment. My impression is that the worst thing which is going on in contemporary culture, that there is a pressure to understand that arts is entertainment. That this is not a serious cultural voice, but just entertainment. We were talking many times, Chris, about fundamental seriousness. I remember that you received this point as important in our dialogue. This is what I think that's the role of art today. Not just entertain people, but just to refer to the most fundamentally important issues of our life. From that point of view, because architecture, even I'm an architect, but I think that architecture lost its own theoretical conviction. They either comply with social theories, or they comply with economical theories, but they do not have their own theory of space. Hopefully, working together with artists, we can bring back the power of space as the critically important element of life. And I think that this is really the most important role of contemporary art today, to let people understand that their life can be fantastic if they realize that the environment they live in is actually architectural space.
Thank you. Damien, just one question to you, because I see that you've been working recently more with private houses, with single unit dwellings, rather than these large scale projects. Is that because you want to maintain your integrity? Yes. Yes, it is.
No, it's always a balance. I'd just like to add, because to the last point though, that my experience in working in Europe was that a chunk of the budget went to an artist for installation in any large building, and that sort of got watered down, and it's sort of like, oh, we need a mural on the wall to tick that box.
Right, fountain.
And sometimes it really worked, and sometimes it's like, we've got to do this because. What's happened, this shift to Instagram and the visual world we live in, is that even some of the finest hotels that have now instigated beautiful artworks and that are very much part of the building, and it comes back to some of the points that we made. Beautiful sculptures and place-specific sculptures, but it becomes an Instagram moment where people go and stand in front of, and it's that equivalent of going to the station and taking the photo and saying, I'm there. So you've got beauty, but again, it can be a monetary thing. But I think there was a move to get art and those things back into spaces. I think integrity in architecture is a whole different presentation. But in terms of working one-to-one with people, be it private user or business users, there's a real enjoyment in that you're not in a boardroom of 40, and that you can perhaps suggest or deal with the situation and collaboratively have the best result, and then maintain some integrity.
Thank you. Jacek, thank you very, very much for being with us. Thanks for your presentation before. I wish you could have been here with us, but you will come back to Skegness. Any last words?
May I say one word more?
Yes, of course.
I just want to, being in Skegness, I just want to say one very important thing, which I remember from my personal visit in the time of SEAS project. If you see those old photographs of people walking on the pier, dressed very elegantly, just to go into public space to enjoy the common time on the pier, my impression is that this is not nostalgia which is inside my mind, but I think that there was a great concept of us treating the shore of the sea extremely poetical space. And this was the time when architecture was really making the developments with this tremendous sense of the power of the place, that how unusual it is. And I remember those colorful cabins which were built on the edge of the beach where
Beach
you
cabins,
could-
yes.
Exactly. This was such a cultural achievement, even it was very simple and full culture. My impression is, and I do hope that, as I said on my presentation, that Airbnb will be recognized as a cultural failure, in a way, that all the tourism will end, that people from London will back again sit in the trains and go to Skegness, and that people in entire Europe will recognize that this concept of treating a coastal places the way how Skegness did it in the past is the best way to deal with space. This is Skegness, this is Sopot in Gdansk, this very, very gentle, very emotional way how culture of living in cities touches the power of the sea and the natural environment. This is not nostalgia. This is just a thought that in the past of our culture, there were certain highlights which were really a great cultural achievements, and we should not remove ourselves from believing in it.
Thank you, Jacek, and maybe we can replace the word nostalgia with authenticity, because I think that's what you're talking about in some way.
Authenticity or sensitivity.
Sensitivity.
That people were sensitive to the power of that very situation of coming to the edge of the sea. Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Damien. Thank you, Jacek.
Thank you, Damien. Thank you for your great.
We didn't leave enough time for any questions in this one, but I promise you that I'll yell and I will do that in the next section. Take 15 minutes. We'll come back and we'll have this dialogue between Beach of Dreams and Brindisi. Thank you. Jacek, thank you.
It's good, yeah.
Yes,
Bye-bye. Have a nice conference.
Bye, Jacek.
Alan, it was great to see you, I have to say.
I'm looking at the laptop, but it's so weird.
I still remember this one. Do you remember this one photograph, Adam?
Sorry?
Do you remember this photograph where we both look at the hole in the wall?
No. But that was such a strange thing. It was so strange to see.
Okay.
Jacek, thank you very much. We'll be in touch in the next days, just to let you know how things are going.
Okay, thank you. Have a good meeting and conference. Bye-bye.
What are you wearing? Yeah. And Aniela and I can, we can stay pretty compact, because she's quick and